Hello and welcome to New Earth Podcast. Today we have with us the wonderful Matt Bell. Hi, Matt.
Hi,
Amazing
how you
to have
doing?
you
Hi,
on the
Sarah.
show.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, so
Good to see
Matt
you.
is an artist, a time traveller. There's such a richness to all that you're doing, Matt. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm mainly an artist, sort of graphic designer, animator, illustrator, and sculptor. But I do 3D graphics. But sort of going through my sort of youth, I became sort of psychic or an intuitive, and basically sort of developed a connection with star family, or what you'd call extraterrestrials. And yeah, I get to go up on craft and get to communicate with many of them. And so I've sort of moved away from that sort of corporate world and moved more into sort of holistic society kind of thinking, and really wanting to bring that about. And obviously having a relationship with Star Family, they kind of want to encourage us to come out of that sort of cycle of slavery and into our own divine sort of you know ways of being, and having a holistic society that really can kind of grow and expand, and sort of reach out into the cosmos eventually.
That sounds amazing, Matt. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you started connecting with your star family?
Well, yeah, I mean, sort of from the age of 7, I was getting very sort of strange sort of experiences where I'd see craft, or I'd be called outside, and yeah, I'd sort of it all really kind of started by kind of looking out at the stars, and then I'd kind of just wave at them naturally, sort of saying hello, because I felt that they were conscious beings, and later found out that they're all the stars are, and in fact everything is conscious. But So anyway, I'm there waving at the star, and the star kind of waved back at me, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, "What?" So I kind of realised that there is an intelligence in them, and this is when I was quite young, and then I just started sort of communicating and talking to them, and then eventually, a couple of times, an orb would come into the garden, and they'd say, "Would you like to come up on a craft?" And I get to meet loads of other beings who consider sort of me as family. So it's never been a kind of fearful thing. It's been a very loving and friendly kind of interaction. So yeah, that's sort of really how I developed my Star Teachings protocol, the Connections protocol, which is a way for everyone to connect with their own star family, and develop that relationship with their long lost ancestors, if you like. So yeah, it's basically a 5-step process, and I'm doing. It's lovely because I've started doing that last year, and we've been sort of getting lovely little gatherings out in the evening, and people sort of get their chairs or their recliners, or their even some of those inflatable mattresses, and they just kind of lie out, and I sort of talk them through how you connect with star family, and then people do it themselves, and it's lovely because there's a lot of sort of oh wow, it moved, and sort of gasps of amazement, because it kind of breaks the paradigm which everyone's trying to be, that sort of box of programming which everyone's being sort of kept in, which is no, life doesn't exist out there. No, that if it does, it's coming into to take over the world, sort of thing. But they realize that actually there's very intelligent beings out there, many of them, and they're very benevolent. Not all of them. There are some regressive ones as well, um, but they're sort of looking out for humanity, really, and rooting us on to kind of develop ourselves so that we become more harmonious and integrate with the stellar civilizations. So yeah, I drew a little 5-step thing. Is it all right if I sort of
Oh,
show you that on?
absolutely.
So first of all, it's you have to get yourself into a nice, good mood. That's like, say, sort of the feeling you get when you're going to see some chums that you haven't seen for a while, or you're listening to a good tune, maybe a good tune to put on to listen to get you in the mood, in a good vibe. And then the second thing is basically getting to your heart space. So that's tuning into your sort of authentic self, and not being sort of cynical and in ego, or sort of looking for flaws in things, or creating expectations. That's just being your authentic self in your heart space, open-minded, not expecting anything. Maybe something might come along, you never know. Just don't put any judgment on something, and just tune into that loving space, your wonderful heart space. So then when you go outside, you look at the night sky, and a particular star will twinkle at you and be like, oh, kind of thing. And that'll be the one to connect with. It's like if you go into a crystal shop, there's that one particular crystal that's just going, oh, hello, pick me, pick me. So it's the same sort of principle when you go out in the night sky and you look at the stars. There'll be one that sort of gets your attention the most, and then you just basically look at that. You focus your eyes onto that star. Um, just keep your eyes as still as possible so that they're not rolling around in your head, and your head and body as still as possible so you can tell that the star is moving and not you. And so some people use like the roof silhouette or a tree silhouette to sort of cross-reference to see whether the star family is moving or not. So that's and then you've got a very still eyes focused on that point of light. And then if you just sort of say hello and wave at it, or namaste, or hello beautiful, it will sort of blink and then sort of rise up. And then that's when you know that you've connected with it. And literally they are in such joy that they sort of bob up and down with joy. It's like they're sort of children as well. Or they kind of wave side to side, hello, So you're like, wow, that's amazing. It's kind of moving, and it's literally bobbing up and down. And then as you sort of develop more of a relationship with them, you can start asking them questions. Basically, you can start saying, are you are you extraterrestrial? Are you humans? Are you, all sorts of things start coming back to you, because you're having that energetic connection of light and telepathy. So you're on a much higher frequency level as well, because you've gone into that heart space. So you're your authentic self, and you're vibing really high. And then basically you can start asking them questions. You can start sort of saying, oh, am I on the right track? For my path, am I, or am I, is there anything that I need to pay attention to, or something like that? And depending on your frequency, you could get answers straight away, as like a sort of an inkling popping in, or like, because you're in that connection of light with them, that visible connection and energetic connection, you kind of let that light trickle in, and it sort of finds its spot, and then kind of like a day or hours later, you'll be like, bing, something will pop up, and you'll be like, ah, that's the answer.
I
So you
see.
kind of,
Yeah.
you kind of get that. They don't tell you like as in necessarily in a voice, you hearing them in your head. They sort of give you the light to unlock that information that you already know within you, sort of thing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then it's like ping, that suddenly will, come up in your mind, and you'll be like, actually, that seems completely logical to have that answer. So it's really lovely. And sometimes as well, the more you develop your sort of connection with them, the more you'll know if up and down is bouncing with joy, or it's saying yes, or if it's waving literally like that, or if it's saying no to your questions. And then if you ask some questions that they don't understand, or maybe that the answer is not just a simple yes or no, they kind of go in a figure of eight sideways, or they'll do a sort of tight circle as if to say, well, we can't kind of give you a yes or no answer to your
Sure.
question,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So yeah, it's brilliant. And then you get things like shooting stars, but they're not. They're craft coming in quite low, and they're ejecting their plasma, which is what's forming their immersion field off the back of their craft. And literally, they can change it to colors. So you'll see like green streaks for the heart chakra, or orange streaks, for the sacrum, or whatever sort of different, or blue for the throat chakra. So they can tell you what sort of frequency you're at as well. So
Wow,
that's really,
amazing.
and then so you get the ones in the sort of constellation that are moving like the stars. So they're slowly drifting, but they're like on a grid pattern in front of the actual stars they're representing. So those actual stars or planets or etc., they exist out there, but you can't see them because the ones in front of it are directly kind of representing them. And that's their way of kind of monitoring us, different star family around the planet. So so all the ones that you see around you, literally when you go out into the night sky, it's sprinkled with loads of different stars. You can tune into any one of those. Literally, you can focus in on one, and then you can sort of say hello. Sometimes it's quite funny. It's like sort of modem hooking up. Sometimes it takes a few seconds for them to kind of blink and then recognize that you're kind of looking at them, because they've got the ability for their technology to read things like muons and tachyons and stuff. And our gaze is literally, it's a form of energy beam, so they can detect that. So basically, stars in the skies that you're seeing are craft with beings in, and they've got like a kind of a immersion field of plasma around the craft that lights up. So it looks like a white point of light. Or they're drones, that are operated by star family. So it might be from planets millions of miles away, but they can see, they can monitor what's going on there on Earth from that distance, no problem. Or it might be kind of star family craft that have kind of drones that monitor around. They're in Earth orbit, like the ones I'm in contact with, the Pleiadian Tagetans, who are in a craft called the Tolica in orbit around Earth at the moment, and many others. There's the Urma, which are the cat beings and things like that. So yeah, there's loads of wonderful variety out there, and they're in orbit because actually the sun is a portal. It's a white hole, so there's a lot of traffic coming in and out, and they stop here as well to stock up on supplies and things. So yeah, so you learn loads when you connect with Star Family. They kind of give you all this information, and you get to go to sort of meetings and hear about what's going on with the Federation and things like that. So yeah, lots of wonderful stuff, and that's partly why I'm going into holistic communities, and bringing in those kind of new sort of higher frequency, expanded consciousness kind of ways of thinking and being and doing. Just kind of putting those narratives out there, because it gives a sort of alternate kind of few alternate options to that kind of slavery and kind of control matrix.
That's
So, yeah.
amazing, Matt. There's just so much I could pick up on there. Really incredible. I'd love to hear a little bit more about any downloads that you've had specifically. Because presumably when people start connecting, that they're going to start off with the yes and no response, almost like you use the pendulum or muscle checking or something like that, as a way of kind of checking in with what's going on. But by the sounds of it, it can become much more sophisticated, in terms of what you're receiving, the information that you're receiving. Was there a process with that for you, or was it just like you say, the light bulb moment? And what any particular amazing downloads that you'd like to share?
Well, oh gosh, where do I start with that? Well, everyone basically is ascending. So, and this planet, this realm, is a kind of school for souls to go on their sort of spiritual advanced class, basically, and it sort of accelerate your conscious awareness, sort of thing, and knowing. We're all kind of born here with limitations, so that we can grow into that space. And that sort of limitation is where we form our ID, our concepts of who we are. The ego forms that sort of outer construct, where we interface with the world, but it's not necessarily our authentic self. So basically, I'm helping people get back to their authentic self and deconstruct that ego, so that they can kind of find their true core, authentic, sincere self. and be empowered by that. So it's not a weakness, it's actually a sort of superpower, actually, because it's like teaching people to do a bit of shadow work, to meditate, to go within, because the formula goes like this. It's basically, there's so much conflict in the world, and that's because everyone's in that sort of external reactionary kind of sort of state of consciousness. And actually the secret is to go within and work on yourself, so you become the harmonious being, and then you're no longer in that sort of conflict or creating that conflict with the rest of the world. In fact, you can be a healer and love the rest of the world and help people to learn that as the sort of transition. So it's basically helping people to become a harmonious being on the frequency levels within, rather than the sort of discordant, divided, triggered, kind of, or sad person. And then that's kind of making people sort of unite under that unity consciousness with the heart-based unity, which is kind of what's going on at the moment across the planet. It kind of, people are finding through their own experiences and traumas and stuff like that, they're finding these kind of ways out of that sort of mire, that darkness. And they're really sort of coming and blossoming into their true kind of divine status, because what's happening, particularly with star families, that while you're having this interaction, you're actually getting light codes from them, and they're unlocking your dormant DNA, which is then sort of with me, I became psychic. I was able to start reading energies and things like that. I mean, I'm an artist, so I kind of look at nature as the purest truth, really. That's sacred living geometry. That's how that manifests in the physical, through those energy structures. So I started just to help people come through that first stage of consciousness, where it's kind of, oh, why is this all happening to me? Why is this, where they see themselves as a sort of separate thing and everything just happening to them. And I'm kind of helping them break through that into the second and third states of consciousness, where they're sort of, they realize actually they've got an interactive role in what they're doing. And then, they can, by their sort of reaction, they can change the outcome of that situation and things like that. And then that kind of helps people rewrite their internal narratives, and their sort of change up their sort of life structures, and kind of realize what's not serving them, what's kind of making them suffer. And then they kind of decouple from that, and they sort of cut all those energy entanglements. And then that leaves loads of room for light to come in, and loads of lovely data, because they've kind of reversed their field in that sort of chrysalis stage. They kind of reverse their magnetic field. So all the light and source comes back in. It's like equivalently your light cord gets really thick, because you're getting like a bigger data stream. Because you've kind of, when you're in that first state of consciousness, your ego is kind of going that, making your magnetic field go that way, which is blocking any kind of new information. So that opens that up. And then, so what Star Family is saying, and what I'm getting from source as well, is that, people are going through those processes of working on themselves. They're getting new kind of thoughts that they never had before, because we're sort of entering the Andromedan galaxy, and we're getting a lot more cosmic dust and more exotic particles of higher exotic frequencies. So these are all entering our systems and stuff, and it's kind of raising people up in frequency.
Definitely.
And also at the same time, we're seeing all these horrendous narratives popping up, because they can't remain hidden anymore, which is terrible. But it needs to be kind of gone through to realize that, what you want to support and what you don't want to support anymore, and it becomes into the public awareness. So there's a sort of shift in consciousness at the moment, and I'm sort of assisting that with many others, such as yourself, and Paul Leclerc.
Yes,
with
and
the new website.
Paul I interviewed a couple of months ago, so you can find his interview, if you look back through my videos. And you've been working with Paul as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
We'll have a chat about the work you do with Paul in a while. I'm just got a question in my head about because there's quite an overlap, with some of the other podcast discussions that we've had, and one of the conversations that's been coming up is the relationship between the inner and the outer. And I know in terms of astrology, you know, working with the planets, you have the representation of the energy of that planet, for example, Mars being very masculine, warrior-like. And then we also hold those archetypes within ourselves. So by connecting with the stars, do you feel that we're meeting parts of ourselves that perhaps we haven't integrated? And how would you see that happening?
Oh, absolutely. You know, well, it's actually part of a wider process. Actually, when you realise that through physics that you are also like a star because you're a happening event. So consciousness is always moving. You know, life is in constant flux. That's the only constant. It goes in these cycles and stuff like that. And so when you connect with star family, you realize that you're sort of actually part of a much bigger system. You know, but you're not insignificant. Actually, you have a greater part of that because you are a fractal part of that source itself. You're like the soup within the soup sort of thing, you know, a bit more concentrated maybe. But so that sort of consciousness has a sort of matrix of consciousnesses within it. That's what it grows. And those are sort of broadcast into the physical, into the light spectrum that we will then call matter and stuff like that. So yeah, back to your question, when you start connecting with star family, you realize actually, you know, I've got family out there that are ancient ancestors that seeded me on the planet. Oh, and then but at the same time, you're working on yourself. So you're tapping into that universal source within you, that light within your heart, sort of thing. And that is that's like the quantum field. You've got access to all information and all knowledge in the now moment, the present moment. And the whole point about sort of media and governments and stuff is that they're distracting you on the external. They're trying to keep you looking forward about the future or looking back about the past, but never directly in the present about yourself. And the TV and media is all there as a distraction to stop you thinking about yourself in the present moment and now and co-creating a new different way of doing things. So yeah, the connecting with star family and the wider aspects to that in the planets and stuff like that does bring in your more whole self as well. And you realize actually that you're not, say, broken or you're not insignificant. You realize that your source itself, that everyone is source themselves. And really we do operate in both the external and the internal. I mean, the Atlantis, the experiment was to do something like a heel prick or slap the baby so that their first experience would be in the external type of consciousness. And then they would stay in that because then they were educated and indoctrinated and programmed to be in that, looking at everything externally as affecting them. And seeing themselves as insignificant. But the actual thing is, it's the other way around. You know, the universe is actually in the center of us. We're not the center of the universe. The universe is in the center of us. And when you tap into that field, you know, the reality changes. It improves. You know, you get better health. More serendipity, more alignments. Things fall into place. Better manifestation. You know, meet up with people in the same sort of harmonics as you, so there's no conflict. And so yeah, these aspects of cosmology are very important actually, because they're partly to do with setting your frequency at birth. So yeah, absolutely. And they're to do with actually setting the vibration. So there's very specific vibrations that occur from the interrelationships of the different bodies in the solar system and in the wider universe. And those set frequencies, which then, if you're a match to, you'll come through the birth portal of your mother, and there you go. You'll manifest as a being, as another new sun, as
It's
another
amazing,
new
isn't
happening.
it? When you start dipping into the quantum field, I'd love to touch on it a little bit more. You know, what you were saying about that. When we access the quantum field, you know, with the infinite potential and possibility and the potential for healing as well, you know, in that field, and how really that we can, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Things like, you hear of autistic children who they can tell you mathematically the date of Easter for every year. And it's like they're tuned into that radio station, that
Yes.
they've got this, and then others makes of car, the car,
Yeah, it's brilliant. I
all the
mean, you get,
details about cars and everything.
yeah.
They know how about cars, and it's like, how does that happen? And, it's like, you spoke about the frequency matches. If we can tune into the Sarah radio station, all the things I need to know to put me fully on my path so that I can, make a difference in the world and come, the learning, all that stuff, because we get knocked out. So do you have any insights into that from your communication?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So basically, well, let me talk about first your multidimensional self, and then I can explain how you can reach that version of you that you feel best aligns you and represents you. So basically, time is an illusion. It was invented when the word time was given, and the concept. It's just basically labeling duration of things. So, you could say birth and death, beginning and ending. They're all kind of false constructs because there's no really such thing as time, because that's based on the planet's motions, and it wouldn't apply to, say, Mars or a different planet system with different dynamics. So this sort of illusion of time, that's why it's really important to get into the now moment, because then that's where all life exists. Because if you think about it, memory is non-existent. It doesn't, things that happened in the past don't exist anymore, and things in the future haven't happened yet. So that's all sort of projection. So the only real thing that's happening is the now moment, the eternal now moment. And really to kind of get people into that state of being where they're consciously creating the now moment, which then changes the future coming, because they're creating that in their now. So they're shaping that outcome, that future stuff to them in a better way. I think it's important to kind of get people out of their sort of anxieties, and the way you can do that is to sort of to get them to sort of stop being distracted by things like time and sort of going on these circuits, to get them to change up their life patterns and stuff like that. Um, and so yeah, time is a kind of illusion, really. And if you want to kind of become a better version of yourself, or a more improved version of yourself. So, and another example of time is when you're in dreaming, you can dream about a chicken having an egg, and then the egg hatching instantly, or then going back to an egg,
Yeah,
back
it's
into the
interesting.
chicken, or
Which
whatever.
comes first, the chicken or the egg? There's many
Yeah,
things like that.
well,
I work
both
with
at the
Chinese
same time.
medicine, and that it's often this interplay, that
Yeah.
yeah,
So time itself, in when you're dreaming asleep, doesn't really exist. It's this kind of arbitrary thing you can manipulate, and it's the same. It's just that in when we're in our awake state, we can we don't have to follow the time. We can, and in fact, actually, everyone's got their own time zone around them. You'll get people who are always kind of fussed in a hurry. Oh, I've got to get this, got to get that. And then you get those people who are really laid back and go, oh yeah, I'll be there around 12-ish, kind of
we
thing.
get a lot of that in Portugal. You have to
Well,
learn to arrive an hour or so late.
yeah,
Yeah,
people have their own time zones. So
yeah.
basically, so that's about time. But it's also because about the dreaming state. What's nice about that is that you're aware of your physical body when you're awake, but you're not necessarily aware of your non-physical body when you're awake. But when you're asleep, it's the opposite. You're not aware of your physical body, but you're aware of your, unconscious body, your sleep body, as it were. So you are in two different dimensional states just by every day you're going to sleep and then waking up. So that's one aspect of our multidimensional self. Another aspect is that when people come to you, they'll have their own version of you in their minds. They'll say, "Oh, I know Sarah. She's like this," and someone who you've been interacting with on a different level or in a different way, like
Yes.
a parent to or a friend, is a different way. They'd have a different version of you. They'll be like, "Oh, Sarah, yes, family member, etc., etc." So everyone kind of has versions of you in their mind, but they're not you. That's their versions of you. But you actually have lots of multi-dimensional versions. You're like a big disco ball, and all the different faces on those mirrored tiles, yeah, are all the people and everything really. But you're not the actual each individual. You're the whole ball with all the different tiles and different faces, different life experiences. And when you kind of explain time is past, present, and future are happening simultaneously at the same time, you realize kind of everyone else is a version of you, like a kind of a dimensional version. Some are like really extremely away from you, not necessarily who you would think is a reflection of yourself, because it would be seemingly the polar opposite. And some are like really aligned to you, and you're like, wow, everything you kind of wear and the things you like doing is like really similar to the
Right.
stuff I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So there's all these multi-dimensional versions of you, and really all the trick is to kind of create that character who you want to be, the alter ego, if you like, and say, right, I want to be Matt I want to be starting to wear stripy hats. I want to be, well, a bit more arty in this area or something, and then you kind of tune in to that. You kind of create your menu of who you want to be. Yeah, and then there'll be a dimensional aspect, like I was saying about the mirror ball, of you. There'll be a kind of version of you, a future one, if you like, of yourself. And then what happens is you become that. The more you kind of, the more you tune yourself into being that character, that person that you want to be, the more that person appears, and then before you know it, you are that self same version that you wanted to be. And it's just really as kind of simple as that. It's kind of identifying where you want to go, what sort of character you want to, person you want to be. It's got to be authentic, obviously. You can't then, I don't advise creating a false character, but just an authentic version of you that you see as a future one. And then you can kind of aim that way, and then slowly absorb that and then become that. So that's
I'm
the
finding
kind
this
of,
totally fascinating, Matt. I'm feeling like, I know there's other stuff we're going to talk about, but I could spend the rest of the podcast just diving deep into this, because it's reminding me of, I work with ancestral healing as well. And, a lot of the work we're doing with epigenetics is, rather than, tuning in to great uncle Tim who had diabetes, let's tune into great uncle Matt who had a very healthy, pancreas. So it's kind of like, because we do have that pool of ancestry
yeah,
as well,
yeah,
that we can actually, select what's awake, what's active.
absolutely.
So it's a similar kind of idea, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And well, that's a really nice aspect you brought through, because the spirit world, the kind of fourth dimension or the astral plane, is accessible. We are multidimensional. There are people who kind of straddle both worlds, really. They're kind of in this 3D physical world, but they're able to see and interact with spirits and beings in the higher frequency, in the astral world or the spirit world. And what's nice about that is that they're intermeshed. Everything is intermeshed in the same place. So it depends on what kind of frequency or sort of octave you're resonating at as to which kind of realm appears. So
Right.
when people pass over, they can go through the astral realm, and and that's a whole, another Earth effectively, but it's sort of in the spirit realm. And that's why people can contact their ancestors still, because they're still there, they still exist, but not necessarily in this frequency, in this visible frequency 3D. So that's what's nice about what you're doing. If you're tuning into those ancestors who are still there, who are still around, who can still advise and stuff, people, as to their current situation. That's what's so lovely. But you can also do it with your future ancestors as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say that from the now moment, you can like heal and release a lot of the trauma that's perhaps trapped in the ancestral field from the past, but also, it can go down the ancestral line into the future as well, which is
Absolutely.
amazing. And I understand, in terms of, because I work with a lot of trauma healing as well, and things like, someone had a traumatic event. It's whilst we can't clear what that event, the event that happened, we can rewrite, how it's perceived, and actually, some of my most traumatic events I now see as my greatest gifts, because they kind of put me on my path more than ever, because I've kind of rewired my relationship with those events now.
Right. Yeah, no, that's how it's done. I mean,
Yeah.
when you realize, when you get people to look at their trigger points, what triggers them to be kind of react to something, that's obviously where they need a bit of healing, and that's obviously an obstacle for them because it causes them some anxiety or some anger and stuff. And actually, you're quite right, because when you kind of identify them, those kind of triggers, you can identify the context of why you react that way, why you feel that way from that trigger, and it's like you say, you can rewrite that context, as it were. You can say, well, at the time I didn't know this, I reacted that. It's just a set of circumstances that appeared like this, but wasn't necessarily that. All those sorts of things can help you kind of rewrite the way you look at your traumas in the past. And then those actually become kind of like a doorway, because they're like, well, actually, I've learned this now about that sort of area of life, that sort of variable, and actually that's made me wiser, to apply that in the current me now, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, and it's really nice helping people with information, and it could be just a simple sentence that then unlocks their prison, their sort of the mind, as it were, and stops them feeding that same energy over and over again, and helps them sort of release and cut that. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you one last question. I'm going to be strict with myself because I could keep asking you questions, but and then we'll move on to another topic. So earlier on, you talked about that kind of reversal of when we're in ego, we're sort of putting out,
Yes.
and then that's what's reflected in our external world, and then the reversal of receiving and I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about toroidal fields and the mechanisms and what people can do to make that shift.
Yeah. Well, everything has a toroidal field naturally around it, because consciousness is created through coalescing forces. So, and all consciousness is the mind, or is God, is the universe, or is ether. So they're all latent potential, waiting to create everything and anything, or into what we call the physical. So what happens is like, kind of like a pool, ripples going inward. Energy coalesces, but it coalesces from a sort of an idea, a concept, and then that creates a sort of form of frequency, like a standing wave, which then coalesces and forms mass. So it forms things like atoms, atomic bonds, elements, and everything we see as matter. So basically, when you realize that, there are two forces mainly at play. There's the coalescing implosive force, like pregnancy, but then there's the sort of radial force also, like kind of exfoliating, when you're kind of exfoliating your skin cells and stuff like that. But equally, so everything operates under these either attractive or repelling forces, if you like, because it's electromagnetic. And that includes us. So we're attracted to things and we're repelled by things, and we decide that through our state of mind. So it's basically energy first, and in that, consciousness projects a mind, which is what we would call our limitation or identity. Our construct of who we are as a personality, and then that filters frequency, and that projects the body. So then effectively, if it's all really based on your frequency, your state of mind, and your thoughts, and how you interpret them, how you value what you see in the world, and how you interpret that and react to that. And that sets the tone for your whole body, the way that your body is projected, the disease that may appear in discordance. If people are constantly angry or constantly sad, that affects the physical body, and things like that. So when you realize that it's all sort of energy, and the way that your consciousness, your mini conscious fractal version of the whole consciousness kind of interprets the world or the energies around you, then you can start sort of training to be in control of your ego and your emotions, rather than them running you, because then you're easily manipulated by other things externally. So we operate in this radial or entropy and negentropy and implosive force. And really, so most people are in ego and that radial explosive force, but generally women mostly tend to be with that internal implosive force. So hence the fact that they can have babies and things like that, because they put resources in and they draw all those elements to create the baby when the two codes are connected and create a new life. So everything has a toroidal field. Things like apples show the shape of that toroidal field. Even your brain will show the shape of that toroidal field. And then the earth has like a toroidal field, like you see the sort of the aurora borealis is a clue where the plasma is lit up. Charged particles show the sort of magnetic field around the earth and stuff. So that creates a toroidal field, and then everything is drawn into the center and then pushed out, or either drawn in from the bottom and pushed out from the top, depending on what magnetic field that you have. So that's where your consciousness comes in, because that's like the gate that really can switch from one to the other. Like, for example, now I'm in kind of performance mode because I'm talking to you and stuff like that. I'm not meditating. I'm being the tap where all the water's going away from me, or my energy is going out. But if I go into meditation mode, I become the plug hole where all information comes into you, and you don't have to reach for anything. It just comes to you by your just being quiet and still. You become like a kind of a reflective kind of mirror, almost able to be really calm and still, and then every noise and frequency around you, you can kind of read a lot louder, a lot clearer. So that's the inward implosive state as well. And that is the healthy one, because that's the one where you connect with source, where you realize that you're a divine being, where you let more light in, and it empowers you actually to see more truths as well, without a sort of your observation bias, if you like, because ego is kind of like how you think you should interact with the world, what you think people think you should be like, what you had to do, who you have to keep up with, this, that, and the other rubbish. So it's best to go within and meditate. Another example actually of blocking is when someone's talking, they can't listen. Their ears are like switched off if they're doing all that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's another example of radial explosive energy blocking any. They can hear stuff, but I'm talking about listening. If someone was talking to them at the same time that they were talking, they wouldn't necessarily hear what the other person was saying, because they'd be hearing their own voice projecting out.
Yeah.
So that's another example of radial flow blocking anything coming in. Whereas when you're listening, not hearing, listening, you're actually paying active attention to whatever's coming into you. That's a much stronger, a more enlightening type of energy that fills you up. You become this never full cup that's always filling up with new information and stuff like that. So those are kind of, people have toroidal fields. Everything has toroidal fields. Planets have toroidal fields. Galaxies have toroidal fields. So it's a case of working out which way your flow is, whether it's outward, ego, or whether it's inward, kind of more meditative and more Zen monk kind of style.
That's fascinating. And talking about the work that you're doing, with setting up sort of unity heart-based communities, um, would you like to talk a little bit about that? The work that you're doing with Paul,
Yeah,
and doesn't some of the systems that you brought up, doesn't it bring in some of this kind of energy of toroidal field as well?
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's why I thought it would be nice to have that understanding before you start talking about it. As to how to construct a healthy community. Because we've had some very unhealthy kind of constructs, haven't we, in our
Yeah.
society, that we need to really shift the energy of it all.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of moving out of the 3D into the 5D, and part of that is, getting rid of the competition aspect and more collaboration. And actually, when people collaborate, two people create three times worth of energy. So you can, if they're unified on getting something done, it'll get done a lot quicker and manifest a lot quicker. And yeah, I've been Paul and I've been beavering away, building this website, um, which is I kind of got some little pictures. It's called positivelivingcommunities.com, and the aim is sort of twofold, really. Well, threefold. I got a template a while ago, which is it's like a Trivial Pursuit puck, divided into 5 slices, and that's really kind of came about from looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and thinking, oh, okay, so we could integrate that in a whole system to make sure each one of those are met for any one individual sort of person.
Amazing.
And then I got the sort of download from Star Family, which was using sacred geometry, which was using the 5-pointed star, ironically, but in the sense that our shape is like 5-pointed. The human form is like a 5-pointed shape, really. So yeah, so that was really kind of everyone has a set of needs. Basically, they've got community, health, lawful, enterprise, and social. So you've got these kind of 5 aspects of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's using spiral flow. So that's using sacred geometry, spiral flow in and spiral flow out, and it's using those 2 forces that we've just talked about, which is implosive force and radial force. And what happens is you can kind of you can ask people to join, but they'll only join because they want to, and because the system will work, and for the company that they keeps bringing them back. So no matter kind of what kind of rules or templates you put in place, if you kind of be the flower, the bees will come, rather than kind of trying to reach out for things. You just do what you do really well. And so I'm sort of, with Paul, we've come up with this website where you can either go on a journey, one module to help you bring about your community, your positive living community where you are. So it's a sort of kit bag of how to do that, what you might need and stuff like that. Dealing with dynamics of people as well, and mindset shifts and things like that, holding space for others and things like that. And then the other one is kind of your own personal journey. So you've got the kind of group journey, and then you've got like a little personal journey that you can go on, where you can do all the sort of stuff that we're talking about, which is become more self-aware, do a bit of shadow work, raise your vibes, basically become more harmonious, and accept yourself, self-acceptance, and then really shine, really fly with the projects that you want to make, and the sort of collaborations that you want to see, because people know instinctively what's right and wrong. They don't need the sort of government to tell them, really. And that whole system about the positive living communities has come about because there are so many people who are kind of pushed through the cracks and kind of let down by our current system. So we wanted to create a better way of doing things, but not sort of dictatorial, more like a menu where you can kind of select the sort of stuff that you think's really good for you or your community.
And
And
do you
then,
see that as being quite co-creative, like the people that come along and join the
oh, it has to
community
be.
adds to it, so it's continually evolving and building?
Oh, absolutely. No, it has to be
Yeah,
because it can't be one. What it has to be everyone's flavor.
yeah,
Because it won't work otherwise. This is not just about me and Paul. This is like we've had Diana Cooper and Pam Gregory. We've also got Catherine McBean and the PHA and the PFFA wanting to join and use our model as well of
fabulous.
funding. And we've got various other groups as well. We've got some guys in the community group like Nourish boys, Sue Stone's boys, and various other kind of incentives as well. So yeah, we've got loads of really good people on our network, and we're sort of as people come through when they become a member of the PLC, they get to do this thing called Ikigai. Have you heard of Ikigai before?
I haven't.
So Ikigai is basically let me find the illustration. Is basically here we are. So it's the intersection with what you like to do, with what you're good at, with what you can get paid for, and with what the world needs. So you've got that sort of thing going on.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so basically everyone who comes through the website and becomes a member, they may need some assistance, and then we can hopefully get them to the right assistance and get them the help that they need or assistance they need. But equally, each person has got a repository of knowledge, skills, experience, talents, and they could like find a lovely role within that 5D holistic, future community. And there's loads of lovely roles coming up for people, so that they can then sort of help populate out and shape and co-create that wonderful holistic society that we're all wanting to be part of.
It's so
So
exciting.
yeah, I mean, I'm so excited. We've got some members already, and um, we're 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 sort of working really hard to kind of fill out the last bits of the modules so that can start helping people. But yeah, it's really exciting, and there's loads of potential projects and events coming up from that as well. So it's kind of an upward spiral, I think, as well.
So the People's Health Alliance, have they kind of taken the kind of, you showed that diagram earlier that was like chunks of the Trivia Pursuit. The health,
Yes,
that they're sort of taking on that role, are they?
yes, yeah. I mean, yeah. So the way the funding works is through that sort of implosive energy. Um, you as a member you pay £11 a month, and then that goes into like a central pot, like a big cooking pot, if you like. So it's like the same principle as the village cooking pot, where everyone contributes to it. No one owns the cooking pot. What you've got some people who sort of maintain it, but kind of everyone owns that village cooking pot, and everyone kind of chucks in their sort of membership and their sort of energy and input, and then everyone then gets a free meal, gets the dividend, if you like, or the share of that collaborative project. So we've got the idea that everything goes to the central store kind of thing, the core, the heart, really, it should be the heart of the process. And then from there, you distribute out, you circulate, you give a circulation to whatever project that the community decides is important that they need.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like kind of oh, here we go. We've got you've got members sort of filling up. It's like the church thermometer, on the roof fund kind of thing. We're going to have one of those, and then you see where your money's gone, and then that collective core fund, basically, you reach a question point. So you put like that to the community, say, hey, we've reached, I don't know, 10K. What do we want to spend that on? Do we want to buy a venue so we can have permanent, operations going on, or a piece of land to do agri hub, to grow loads of free food for families and stuff in that area? Or do we want to say, I don't know, buy a barometric chamber and put that in one of the health hubs so that we can offer that treatment? So there's loads and loads of stuff that's going to come from that.
Amazing.
And yeah, and so it's using that implosive force. So really, it's like there's a river um, here, and this is just commerce, energy, people flowing, economy. But here's these sort of initiatives, and they're kind of like empty. They need that flow of energy. They
Yes.
need to divert that. So what the PLC does is it kind of diverts that energy into the pools, which are the PLC hubs, and then that distributes. So that will fill up, and then we need to create some more hubs and more affiliates, and then that will fill up, and then that's eventually diverted back into the stream. So there's no kind of loss in the system. All you're doing is you're kind of building up that core nest egg, and then at certain stages you'll go, hey, right, well, how do we want to use that money for good? Where, where does that want to go? Where does that
And you
go?
see it being quite international rather than local, sort of local to you.
Well, I think it will start off locally, but I mean, we're getting already messages from Canada, Australia, all over the place, which is saying, yeah, we really love that. And we just had some guys in America as well, who love the model, the way that that's sort of funding, because no one loses any money, which is really nice, because you can see that your contribution is growing with everyone else's, and everyone knows where you are, sort of thing. So, and it's a sort of interactive process as well, because you put that to the people who've contributed. You say, hey, what should we do with this, amazing store of energy and potential options? And then you just get on with it, get on with it, getting it manifest into physical. So yeah, really exciting.
So,
And also we're going to be helping, enterprises as well. So we're going to be helping people create holistic products that are, the natural life path from beginning to end of each material that's been used and things like that on. And communities will be growing products, organic products that are then selling in the pharmacies of the health hubs. And likewise, the health hubs, you'll have consultants
fabulous.
who'll say, oh, I prescribe a nice bit of forest bathing or a nice bit of walk in nature. There's a community that have got a garden, a contemplation garden or a scent garden that you could go to,
It's
and that's a
fabulous.
growers hub sort of thing. So there's a
Yeah.
lovely cross pollination
Yeah.
going on with all the different aspects of the hub, and you're the individual is at the center of that, because all those resources are coming to you. Yes, it's a collaborative effort with lots of people, but each person, those resources will be coming to them. So
And
yeah,
it makes us more resilient and self-reliant with our communities, which is what I love as well. It's very
absolutely,
empowering model, in terms of the self-development work, but also the group work as well.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, you don't win hearts by forcing people to do stuff. You win hearts by helping them and showing and giving them some love and some care and attention, and a bit of compassion. And that way, people will see the benefits once they feel them, and for themselves, they'll want to help others. I think that's really the only way that you can do it. You can't force people to do anything. It's if something's good enough quality, they'll come back to it, sort of thing.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to share under the video, and I'm going to share it on my social media and everything, the lovely video that you did with Paul and Pam and Diana as well, so that people can have a deeper understanding of what the positive living communities is. And I'll also put all
Thank
your
you.
links, positive living communities, and also you have one for the STAR protocol as well. You have a Telegram
Yes.
group, don't you, for that?
Yes, it's yeah, Star Teaching's protocol. I think it's https // t.me /star teaching protocol, something like that. Anyway,
Okay,
you'll find
cool.
us on Telegram.
I'll put it underneath the video as well, so people can find that if they want to know
Thank
more
you.
about that as well. And is there any last thoughts before we finish up? Anything that I didn't cover, in terms of the areas that you're working with?
Well, we're working with so many lovely people: Jackie White, Adrian Lee, Pam, Diana, as you mentioned. It's such a joy, and I really want to sort of open the doors for other people who are of similar minds, who want to create this sort of network of light and positive sort of social change and and sort of consciousness change as well for a better future, really. So yeah,
Absolutely.
no, that's my mission. So, and that's what I'm going to be doing with Paul. There's loads of stuff as well. I've just released a portal of joy, which is brilliant. I haven't even mentioned that, where people go through the portal, it's got all lights around it and stuff, and they get a universal passport. And then, you know, so that's an experiential event where people can go through like a literal portal.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
So yeah,
Wow, you're doing some
loads going
incredible
on.
stuff. Amazing work that you're doing, Matt. And
Yeah, thank you.
I'm looking forward to getting involved with the positive living
Oh,
communities.
good.
Well, totally.
Great.
Yeah, I'm going to have a chat with Paul and see how I can collaborate with you guys. So
Brilliant.
thank you so much. It's
You're
been
very welcome.
amazing chatting with you. I hope you've all enjoyed, everybody, and do hit the subscribe so that you can hear some more New Earth podcasts. Bye for now. Thanks again, Matt.
Bye. You're very welcome.